Welcome back to the Tufts LGBT Center series of sex ed videos. God, I really wanted that intro to be catchier, but I guess they can't all be winners. Don't worry about the rest of this video though. Just like Dan Savage promised, it gets better. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm Katie. I'm a senior here at Tufts and I'm an intern at the LGBT Center. My passions, aside from the ones for goat videos on YouTube, really center on inclusive, accurate, and compassionate sex education, especially in the queer community. The thing is though, just because we're talking sex ed, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're talking about sex. I mean, God, how many times can I say the word dildo and have it still sound like a real word, Good sex ed is about understanding and navigating the sexual landscape, and sometimes that can actually mean removing physical intimacy from the equation and seeing what happens, who's affected. In this video, I'll be covering three main topics. One, what is asexuality? I'll try to parse out some definitions, some confusions, and some subcategories of identity. Next, why is this topic being covered in a video by an LGBT center? What are the connections between LGBT identities and asexuality? And last, I'll bring in some resources and ways to be an ally to asexual people if you don't identify that way yourself. Along the way, we'll hear from two students who are brave and badass enough to share some of their experiences identifying as asexual. I may have done my research, but it's always best to hear from a personal source. And besides, my kindergarten report cards that I didn't share well with others, and I want to prove I've changed by sharing screen time. Miss Moon, if you're watching, eat your heart out. First things first, what is asexuality? The structure of the word actually tells you most of what you need to know for a very basic understanding. The prefix a means not or without, so put that together with the rest of the word, and you basically have something that means without sexuality. Some asexual people still experience arousal, some don't. Some still have sex drives that just aren't directed at other people. Generally, when an asexual is walking down the street, they're not going to see a Hottie McHotterson across the road and want to jump his bones. They might like his jacket, but not his package. Now, when I say that asexual people aren't interested in sex, it can be real easy for the mind to jump to celibacy. But there's a major difference between the two. In this hand, we have celibacy, the conscious and deliberate choice to abstain from sex and not to act on sexual impulses. In this hand, we have asexuality, which is not having those impulses in the first place, no matter how hard you try to consciously create them. That's not to say that all asexual people wish they were sexual. I'm more speaking to the things that we can put ourselves through when we're questioning our identities. In fact, a lot of asexual people who are active in online communities say they wouldn't want to change, but it wasn't a choice. Another common conflation is of the sexual and the romantic. I know when I have those butterfly feelings for another human, I want to make out with their face, and I want to go on a moonlit beach stroll with them. I have both sexual and romantic feelings for the person I like, but it doesn't mean that we're programmed as humans to have these feelings in conjunction. For a lot of people, the experience of sexual identity and romantic identity are distinctly separate, and there are asexual people who are not aromantic. They may be interested in a romantic dating relationship, but they just don't want to have sex with their romantic partner. Daniel, a sophomore, shared with me one of the conflicts that can arise from being a romantic asexual on a campus of mostly sexual people. Though I do not find sex appealing, I do have a strong libido, and I do pursue romantic relationships. The fact that I'm non-sexual makes it complicated to have relationships with someone who is sexual, which is where most of the frustration comes from. Beyond the distinctions between romantic and sexual, there are also some more identity names within the asexual community, which is sometimes called the ace community, which I think is just aces. Yeah, no, that was a bad pun, and I apologize. Anyway, while a lot of people like asexual, there's also demisexual, which some people use to mean that they would need to be intensely emotionally bonded to someone before they could consider being comfortable having sex. Again, this is different from just waiting until marriage because it's more of an orientation than a conviction. Another term used is gray A. Gray A can mean a lot of different things to different people. It could mean that someone usually doesn't have any sexual attractions, but still happens on rare occasions. It could mean that someone has an extremely low sex drive but still feels attractions. Or it could even mean that someone has a sex drive but not really enough of one to ever want to act on it. As with almost any identity, if your friend tells you that they're gray A and you don't have a damn clue what they mean, you're likely to learn a lot more from politely asking them to explain it to you than by nodding and smiling and then running home to Google. Google is your friend, but so is your actual human friend. Something else Daniel said brings me to my next point. Why is an LGBT center, a place that's built in large part on sexual identity, making a video about asexuality? Well, first of all, as a center, we're here to help people, like I said, navigate the whole sexual landscape, and that doesn't mean being gay or being queer. It means something a lot like the vision of good sex ed that I put forth at the beginning of this video, and it includes everyone. But speaking specifically to asexuality, Daniel talked about being both asexual and gay. He says, "I still consider myself gay, but only because men turn me on and are who I look for in romantic relationships. This makes describing my sexual identity difficult and has led me to nearly abandon the nomenclature. I now look at my sexuality as being a multifaceted and complicated thing that is not entirely defined by my desire for sex. To only look at my sexual desire as my sexuality would be like to only consider one flavor of ice cream." Daniel is certainly not alone in this. In a 2011 poll, 40% of asexual respondents said that they either consider themselves a part of the LGBT community or identify as queer in some way. The idea of LGBT inclusion raises an issue that another student, who prefers to be anonymous, has been grappling with. LGBT people have long been known for banding together over shared injustice. Let's be honest, it's pretty hard to throw a pride parade and have nobody notice. And even the concept of community has been super closely tied with LGBT people. But according to this student, asexuality and loneliness go hand in hand. The student continues by saying, "Queers of all stripes have others of their orientation who they can talk to and commiserate with. They have issues that they want addressed. They experience discrimination they want stopped, and they can gossip about hookups, partners, and drama. Asexuals have none of that. Sure, there's no overt discrimination, no one's screaming, 'Have more sex!' But the flip side is that asexuals are more or less invisible. It's so easy to pass as an unlucky or unskilled hetero that finding other asexuals becomes nearly impossible." Daniel was also really honest about the loneliness and confusion that can come with asexuality, but he offered something that really helped him. It has also worked for countless others. Ladies, gentlemen, individuals of any and all or no gender markers, the answer lies, you guessed it, on the interwebs. Luckily enough, if you hop online and check out asexuality.org, you'll find yourself in the lovely land of AVEN, the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network, started by David J. in 2001. David is famous both for AVEN and for rollerblading everywhere. Honestly, I can't say which I'm more jealous of. David J., teach us your ways. Daniel describes AVEN as a site that is dedicated to all things asexy. It has forums, frequently asked questions, and resources for family, friends, and asexuals. AVEN is an absolutely unmatched resource for people who are questioning or who just want more information on asexuality. I personally recommend it to anyone who comes into the center asking for more info. It's pretty much a really big deal. As much as reading and community building are critical resources, sometimes at the end of the day, all you want is for a friend who's different from you to try to understand. If you're not asexual but you have a friend who is, or you want to be a visible ally to someone who might be, there are definitely things you can do. First, and probably the most quickly, you can check out the Friends and Family FAQ on AVEN because it is stellar. But even the most basic conversations can be made ace-friendly if you're aware and you're working on it. One thing to consider is that, are you seeing someone? Doesn't need to be part of small talk. If a friend or an acquaintance has a significant other and it's important to them and they want you to know, they'll probably bring it up. But by immediately asking about relationships, you could be silencing someone who's asexual.
No, it's not a problem.
So then why do you need to organize?
And there's a lot of things that aren't a problem that you need to organize or not. We need to organize, well, partially because it's not getting talked about. because a lot of
You're not having sex, what's there to talk about? Thank you. But I mean, I don't understand.
Not a cool move, pal. The student who prefers to be anonymous also noted how important it is for us to notice how often our society takes sexuality for granted. The student explained it like this. All around us are subtle biases that most people ignore. I can't tell you the number of times people have pronounced that everyone wants to marry or date or have sex or fall in love. I can't blame the people who say it because to them it seems right and natural. But at the same time, I can't describe how isolating it is to know that on the most fundamental level, I don't mesh with society. If we all take note and make it a point to confront our assumptions about love and intimacy, I've got a sneaky feeling it'll be a big step toward alleviating that sense of isolation and difference. Lastly, and this is admittedly pretty similar, but I still think a ridiculously important point. If a friend tells you they're asexual, learn to talk about something else too. Yes, it's important to be a listening ear and to have open dialogue with your asexual friend, but they did not just become your token. Every conversation doesn't have to be about how they don't like sex. You don't have to introduce them to everyone as, oh, Keisha, my friend who's asexual. And it probably isn't the best idea to spend hours asking them every question you've ever had about asexuality. Remember, you have the internet for that. There are so many other ways to connect with people and get to know them. And for some asexuals, not having sexual attractions means that asexuality isn't really a dominant part of their self-identity anyway. You and your friend will find an appropriate balance that makes everyone feel validated and no one feel used. Okay? Okay. So, this was a lot of information, and a lot of it was probably new to folks. I understand that, and I hope everything made sense. But to be totally honest, and to get all tough confessions up in here, the fact that so much of this was brand new information is precisely the reason why I chose asexuality to be the topic of the second video. I wanted to raise awareness, and to give the folks on this campus who do identify as asexual a break, let someone else explain it for a change. Asexuality may not be the most common identity, but it doesn't make it any less important. I thought it was about time to dispel some of the rumors that come along with things being hidden or erased. This isn't about the center or LGBT community claiming asexuality for itself and dragging aces under our big-ass rainbow wing. This is about providing a little bit of video proof that here at the center, we don't think asexuality is fake or wrong. We don't think you're broken. We don't want to fix you. We embrace, believe, and love you. And we want to help other people become your allies. Of course, as many times as I stand in front of the mirror and tell myself otherwise, I don't know everything. If you're asexual and you have some ideas or suggestions on how we can make Tufts a friendlier place, please drop by the center or send us an email. An email address you can send things to is scrolling across the screen right now. Probably really awkwardly close to my boobs, which is an occupational hazard of YouTube, I suppose. But thank you all for watching the second installment of these here sex ed videos. And a very special thank you, the specialist of thank yous, to the two students who shared their experiences. You guys are absolute powerhouses, and next time I see you, I'd like to offer you a very special high five. Yeah, high fives are cool. Yeah, so from the Tufts LGBT Center, this is Katie signing off. Seacrest out!